I'm not being big-headed, and I know I'm very lucky, but the fact of the matter is I get to play with and use most of the thermal scopes, IR scopes, thermal spotters on the market, and I also own quite a few of them myself. But this product here, I've been using it for a few months now, the DNT Optics TNC225R, is currently top of the pile as far as I'm concerned, certainly in an airgun market anyway. And I'm not just saying that because I'm doing a video on it. It genuinely is about the best product I've come across so far. And in actual fact, this one is mine, and I'm just saving up, and when funds allow, I should be buying at least one more, if not two more as well. They really are that good. So what I thought I would do is I'll walk through some of the external features on the scope, then show you some of the internal features and functions as best I can, and then we'll finish up by showing you some footage of the scope in action on hunting trip from last night. Now, the first thing to note about this DNT ThermNight TNC225R is just how compact it is. It only measures 175mm long and weighs 645 grams. Now, I'm going to talk about a lot of numbers in this next bit, and I won't profess to know exactly what they all mean, but I'm sure they'll mean something to some of you. But what it all equates to is an image quality, regardless of what mode you're in, which is really, really sharp. Right, so those numbers then. It carries a 32GB internal memory, which records video in 1024 by 768 pixels. Now, the video quality is very good, but it's not as good as the actual through the scope experience. It takes an 18650 battery, one is supplied, rechargeable battery. Now, DNT say that the runtime is about 5 hours, which is probably just about right, but I would say take a couple of spare 18650 batteries with you, because you probably will run out in a day's use of this. It's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi enabled, has an IP67 water ingress rating, and if I flip it round, it also has a laser rangefinder, which is this unit up here, and I really like the fact that it has a button which is completely separate from the main button array, so there's no kind of fumbling around switching the thing off or switching some other function on when you're trying to operate the rangefinder. Nice and separate and easily accessed. It will measure distance between 5 and 1,000 meters. Now, I can't say that I've taken this out to 1,000 meters, but certainly for airgun use, it's more than adequate. Now, obviously, the main party piece for this, for the ThermNight, is the fact that it runs thermal, daytime, in colour, and black and white IR modes as well, all in the one scope. And the IR illuminator is this part just down here, and you can adjust the beam by rotating the lens on the front here. That will either narrow the beam down or flood it out. And as standard, it's an 850 nm IR illuminator, but you can swap out this lens for a 940 nm if you so wish. Now, the display through the back is very, very clear. It's a 1920 by 1080 micro OLED display with a 50 frames per second refresh rate, and the thermal part of the scope is this larger lens at the bottom here, and that is a 256 by 192 pixel thermal resolution uncooled infrared image sensor. Now, that's one of the things I don't know what that means, but what I can tell you is that airgun ranges, the thermal images is very good, certainly good enough to be able to target quarry with. And that also has a 50 frames per second refresh rate as well, and a 25mm objective lens. Now, the base magnification on the thermal unit is 3 times, and that's kind of the default, unless you adjust it and switch it off, put it into standby, but the default is 3 times, which is less than the daytime color magnification at default, which is 5 times. Now, the thermal magnification range will go up from a base mag of 3 times with 6, 9 and 12 times digital zoom, but obviously the higher you go, the more pixelated that thermal image becomes. So what I really like about the fact that when you swap from the daytime color or the IR mode into thermal, it takes you down to that 3 times base magnification, which makes spotting so much easier. The daytime and IR part of the scope is this one at the top here. That's a 1920 by 1080 pixel resolution sensor. Has a 60 frames per second refresh rate, and that has, as I said, a 5 times base magnification with a 7.5, 10, 12.5, 17.5 and 20 digital zoom. Now, other features on this rifle, on the scope, sorry, are you have sort of fairly standard, and we'll show you these in close-up. You have a diopter adjustment, or the ability to focus the screen through this collar at the back here. This here is your battery cavity at the back of the IR illuminator up here. This button here is a button that you'll need to use to be able to switch between if you're shooting in daylight, the color digital image and swap then to thermal, or if you're shooting at night, the IR image and swap to thermal, or just swap to thermal and use it all the time if you like. Again, nice big chunky button away from everything else, very easy to operate. And then if you can see down here, hopefully right at the back here, you have this little wheel here which is your zoom adjustment, and then you have the main array of batteries at the back. So the top one, very obviously, is the on-off button. There's a picture-in-picture button here, which we'll talk about in a little while, which is very important. And then a button here swaps you between daylight and IR mode. And then the buttons here will take you up and down through the various different menus and a few other menu choices as well. So that's the sort of the external features on the scope. Hopefully you can hear me over the planes and the helicopters going over. What we'll do now is we'll go through some of the internal features and functions. Right, what I'm going to attempt to do now is show you some of the features and functions and sub-menus through the actual scope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the record button, and then hopefully you'll see everything that I'm seeing. And the first thing to do though, obviously, is to switch the ThermNight on, and that's achieved by pressing the top button here, holding it down until you see action through the scope, the top one here, and you see the blue light come on underneath the power button. Now if you want to put the scope into standby mode, just hold that button down, the power button down, for a second or two. That blue light will go to amber to tell you that you're in standby mode, and then when you're ready to operate again, press the button again quickly, and that will bring you back to that blue state to show that you're fully up and running. Right, so I'm going to hit the record button, which is the bottom button, and then go into the main menu, which is the button, sort of the middle button below the power button. Just press that and hold that down, and as you can see, you get a menu come up. Now the first option is screen brightness, which is fairly obvious. You get 5 different levels of brightness. You can go into to switch either your Wi-Fi on or your Bluetooth. The zeroing profile is pretty much the same as most other one-shot zero scopes. Gives you 5 different profiles. Wrong way. A, B, C, D, and E. And if you go back here, you can see I'm on digital, which is the reference for daytime color. But if I change that, you'll see that gives me the option to go in and adjust my thermal scope. But let's go back to color for the moment. So once you've hit the best way I found to target to zero is to put a target up, take a shot, and then take 2 or 3 shots to get a bit of a group, and then keep your aim point on the point of aim, the reticle on the point of aim, and then just do a short press on the power button, and that will freeze the image. And then using the X and Y controls, you can track the reticle to where your point of impact has been, and then hit the left-hand button, long press on the left-hand button to save it. Now you also get some different color options. options for the reticles: black, red, green, yellow. I quite like the yellow and the red ones. And then you can also get different reticle designs. So that's quite a busy one. I think there's 5. So that's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah. Now I quite like 2. So once you've decided on all of that, say long press on the left hand button to save everything. Now you will have to go through the zeroing process for both the thermal part of the scope and the digital day part of the scope. So the next option is dual mode. Now this really is the sort of the party piece for the ThermNight scope, because it will enable you to swap between digital day images or nighttime IR image and thermal. Now if you want to use this just as a thermal scope you can, or just as a daytime digital scope you can, but I would suggest that the reason for having this really is because you want that dual mode operation. Right, your ballistic calculator. Again, this is something that people get a little bit kind of worried about, but if I just take you into that, you can see here you've got your 5 different profiles again, and whatever your profile is that you use, then you're going to want to set this up accordingly to, so the first sub-menu obviously is the distance that you're going to zero to, the scope height, which is the height between the middle of the scope, the main lens, and the which is the daytime lens, and also the middle of the barrel. Muzzle velocity in feet per second. I happen to have this on an FAC rifle, so this is 930 feet per second. It's a 30 caliber, and the pellet weighs 44.75 grains. Ballistic coefficient, that's something that you can find easily enough online. Hard Air magazine has an excellent table which gives you all the different ballistic coefficients, and on most slugs now it's actually written on the side of the box. And then those other 3 entries I don't really bother about too much. Now aiming method is an interesting one. So you can either choose when you use the rangefinder will obviously gauge how far you are to your target, and then when you press it a second time it will adjust the reticle to compensate for whatever holdover or hold under that you need. Now you can either have that by holdover, which will bring up like a secondary aim point on your reticle, or by dialing in, which will actually move the actual reticle for you. Now I'll be honest, I've found that the holdover function is most useful, because if you are not moving the reticle that much, you know, if the compensation isn't that much, it's sometimes hard to see if the reticle has moved or not in the dial-in method. And natural mode, that's just a colour option. What do we got there? Thermal image settings. So you can go into this, you can adjust contrast, brightness, image, and hotspot tracking is very useful as well. So you can either have recoil activated recording, or you can do it manually. Most airgunners are going to want to do it manually because there isn't enough recoil. Sound, obviously you can record sound on or off. You also then get more function settings, including pip position, which is really useful. So you can choose if you want your picture-in-picture option in the top left, the centre, or the top right of your screen. I have mine set for top left. There are then a whole bunch of other system settings, sort of basic ones, timestamp, date, time, that kind of stuff. And then I think that's about it. So that's back to the beginning again. So those are the main features and functions. So what I'll do now is I will show you sort of the party piece really of this. So the picture-in-picture button is the right-hand button. So if you press that, as you can see, you've got, hey presto, the picture-in-picture. Now, if you are in daytime colour mode and you swap over, just get that in focus a little bit. and you swap over to thermal, you can do so by pressing this button. If you are in the infrared mode, the IR mode, then pressing the button will swap you over to thermal as well. And whatever your picture-in-picture mode is, your main picture will be the opposite. So if I press that, you can see there, let's just give that a little bit of a focus as well. Let's have a little focus. That'll focus the right one. There you go. You can see there that press the button, you go from thermal mode back to digital day mode, back to thermal mode again, back to digital day mode. Very, very handy. I have to say, yeah, I've not really used the thermal mode much for targeting quarry, because frankly the color mode is better, and also at night the IR mode is better as well. But for the ability to, let's say you're tracking something and you've lost sight of where it's gone, you can't see it through either the IR mode or the day scope. Now you can swap over to that thermal image, and that will enable you to pick up whatever it is that you were tracking before. It's like having a spotter as part of the scope. Incredibly useful. It's the main reason why I love this scope. Now, just to show you the IR mode. So the IR mode is switched on by pressing the left-hand button, holding it down, and then if you press it, hopefully at the top of the screen there, you can see different levels of IR intensity coming on. Obviously, you're not really going to see that much during the day. But again, that would swap you between the thermal mode, full thermal mode, and the IR mode. Now, before I finally go, I'm just going to drop in that footage from a hunting trip yesterday evening or yesterday late afternoon and into the night. Well, that's it for this week, I'm afraid. Thank you very much for watching. Now, if you want any more information on the products in the show, best thing to do is to check out the scottcountry.co.uk website. And if you like the video, please like, share, and also subscribe to the channel as well. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll get a heads up on future content.